Hi, welcome to Everything About Web. My name is Jamie Kavanaugh, and this is the two-column CSS Layout, Part 1. So let's get started. Let's take a look at our design. So here is our design comp of our home page laid out in Photoshop. And notice that we have followed best practices by making sure that all of our elements are on separate layers. This is going to make it easier to work with and definitely easier when you need to slice and optimize and compress your images for the web. Let's look at the structure that we have here. So we've got a header with our logo and also our navigation, and here we have a two-column structure. So notice that on the left-hand side we have a column. I'm going to call this the content area. It has an image and some text. And then over on the right-hand side we've got what I'm going to call a sidebar. It has images also with some text, and we've got our social media icons there. And at the bottom we have a footer. So we're going to build on what we learned in the one-column videos to create this two-column structure. So let's get started. So let's set up our file organization right away. So I'm going to make a new folder here. Oops. And I'm going to go in and call this Justine Jones because that's the name of our client. And inside of this folder, I'm going to create two other folders, a final web folder and a source file folder. And in my final web folder, I'm going to also create an images folder. Okay. So if we look at our file organization, we're going to place our PSD, our Photoshop file, in our source files. That's something that we're going to refer to, but would not go in our final web folder. And then I've got images here that I used, or that I created when I sliced my Photoshop document. So I'm going to just go ahead and move these in there. I guess I don't need that anymore. And I've got something called templates that we're going to look at. This is a folder where I keep and store all of what I call my starter code. So if you've watched previous videos, you'll know that I don't like to have to redo something that I've done over and over that I've done before. So I've got what I call sort of templates that have starter code, and we're going to use these templates to get started with today's two-column layout. So let's go ahead and now that we have our files organized, let's go ahead and get started with Dreamweaver. So I'm going to go up to New and create a new HTML file. And the very first thing I'm going to do is add a title to my page, and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to save it as index.html, and this gets saved in my client's folder in the final web folder right on this at the same level as my images. Okay. And then the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start a CSS file. I'm going to create one. So I'm going to go to page type CSS, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as style.css and save this also in my final web folder. Now I have the two main files I'm going to be using for this page, but currently my CSS is not linked to my HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and Dreamweaver makes it really easy. You go up to Format, CSS Styles, Attach Style Sheet, and here I can just browse for it, choose it, and there we go. Dreamweaver has added it to the head of my HTML document. So now I'm ready to get started. So what I want to do is open up one of my templates. I'm going to just go to my desktop temporarily and open up one of these templates. So I've got a template created for the 2-column structure. And again, how would I have this? I have this because I've created 2-column structures many, many times, and I don't want to have to recreate all of this from scratch. So here's the code that would be placed between the body tags that will help me to create a 2-column. So I'm just going to copy it, and I'm just going to close this. I'm going to go back to my index.html, and I'm just going to paste it inside. Okay, so here is my starter code that's going to allow me to build a 2-column. And if you'll notice, the only difference between this HTML and the HTML for a 1-column is this div right here, this that I've called sidebar. This is the right-hand column. So now our content div is our left-hand column, and our sidebar is going to be our right-hand column. So I'm basically going to do the same thing for my CSS because I've got these template files that I've created. So this one is for 2-column. So I'm going to just make sure that I've copied all of this, close it, and just paste that into my CSS file that I created. So again, a lot of this is the same as for the 1-column. The only thing I added this wonderful CSS property. It's for our images, and it's going to make sure that there are no borders created. So we've defined it as border none. So if we add any links to any of our images, they won't have those really hideous blue borders around them. So that will eliminate that. And then I've got some CSS for that sidebar. Okay, so again, that's really the only difference between the CSS for the 1-column and the 2-column. One other thing to note, in addition to adding the div for the sidebar, is we've got some properties we haven't used before. We've got floats, so we're floating our content to the left. We're floating our sidebar, which is our right-hand column, to the right. And then in order for the footer to sit below those 2 columns, we're defining clear both in our footer div. Okay, and that's what's going to create the structure. We didn't have to do any of that in the 1-column because all of our divs sat on top of one another. Okay, so if we go back to our HTML, and if we look at our design view, we've given some of our columns and our divs different colors. So we can kind of see it. You can kind of see the header here. And our left column is white, the right column has the gray color, and then we've got our footer. So we've really got a great start with creating our 2-column. So let's, our next step would be to define our colors for our header, our column, and our footer, and also widths, and just start making it look more like our design comp. So I can do this fairly easily by, I'm going to open up under Window, there's CSS Styles, and notice that underneath All Rules I can twirl down this little caret and I can see all of my CSS. So once my style.css is linked, I can easily edit everything that I have here. So what I would do, and I suggest that you do, is really study your Photoshop documents so you know exactly what widths and colors all of your different divs need to be. So for instance, by looking at the Photoshop document, I'm able to, with the help of my rulers, find out exactly what the height of my header is, what the background color is. So, you know, I want to make sure that I have all of these values so that it will be really easy for me to build this page. So the first div that I'm going to modify is this header div. So I'm going to go ahead and edit it. And again, I know from my Photoshop document that the height of it is 130 pixels high, and that my background color is a hexadecimal color A5B9C4. Okay, and we can see that indeed that's the blue that's showing up. So let's move on to our content div. Okay, so we've already specified a background color for that. So the background color is FFF, which is white. And we also have a width, which this is actually correct. If you look at the Photoshop document, you'll see that the width of that content div is 650 pixels wide, and then we've got our float to the left. So that's actually all done for us. For our sidebar, this actually isn't the right color, so we're going to go in here and edit it. And again, I know this from my Photoshop document, and the correct color is EAE 6E6. Okay, and if you look at the Photoshop document very close, you can actually see that the sidebar has a border, has a just a 1 pixel vertical between the content and the sidebar. So that's being created by a 1 pixel border. So I'm going to go ahead and add that also. So notice that one of the categories is border. I don't want 4 sides to have a border. I only want 1, so I'm going to uncheck the same for all. And I basically want it for the left. So I'm going to choose solid, 1 pixel, and again, I know the color because of my Photoshop document, and it's 997E63. Okay, great. So I don't know if you guys saw what happened there. What happened in my design view, let me tab over to my design view. Do you see how this column is no longer up right alongside my content div? And the reason that this happened, and again, we'll talk more about this as we move forward, and definitely as you continue to study, you'll hear a lot about this. It's the reason that this is actually breaking and displaying below the next column is due to something called the CSS box model. And basically the idea behind the box model is that when you've got a width, if you add something like a border, it actually adds it adds that same value to the width of your column. So if we add this 1 pixel border and we've got our width as 340, we actually need to take a pixel off of our width. So if I make my width 339 pixels wide, notice how then my right-hand column sits right next to my content. So it was breaking it just because of that 1 pixel, which I know seems like crazy, but it can happen. So your math does need to add up. So by taking off 1 pixel off my width, I no longer have my column structure breaking. So that's just a good thing to know. And then finally, with my footer, I'm going to go back to my CSS styles, and I'm going to edit this and make sure that I have the correct color. So I'm going to delete what's there because the color of it is 86969F. And also the height, needs to be changed. It's actually 40 pixels, so I'm going to change that. Okay. And if we tab over to our design view, you'll see that we've got it basically started. We've got all of our color selected for our backgrounds, and we have also our heights. Now, one last thing I want to do before we look at this, let me just go back here. We also want to define the background for our wrapper, and our wrapper is the mother, div that everything else is inside of. And I'm going to make that white. So I'm just going to go here and make that white. Okay. So now if I preview this in Firefox, and I do actually recommend that you preview in Firefox versus Safari, notice that I can't see my two columns. It looks like it's collapsed and there's nothing there. The reason it looks like this is that I don't have any content in my left or right column. So as soon as I start adding content, that will you'll be able to see it. Okay. Okay, great. So let's get started, and let's just add all of our content into our layout. So some of the things that we know is that we have a logo that is going to be in our header. So I'm going to make sure my cursor is between the opening and the closing header tag. And I'm going to go up to Layout Objects, Div Tag, and I'm going to add Logo. And this is a div that is going to contain my logo. Make sure that when you do this, what's really important, especially the first div you're sort of adding like this, is that your rule definition is being defined in your CSS. So make sure this pull down here has style.css selected. And I'm just going to say OK and OK. I'm not adding anything right now. I just wanted to get the divs in. And then I'm going to have another div that's right below my logo, but notice that it's not contained within it. I'm going to have my nav. Okay, so here's the logo. Notice it opens and it closes. Here's my opening and closing nav. And then in my content, I'm going to add a div, and I'm going to call this main content. So this is where that the photo is going to go and the text. And then in my sidebar, I'm going to do this similar thing. I'm going to go ahead and insert a div tag, and this is going to be called main sidebar. Okay, and I like to make sure that everything's being added. So go to your CSS styles and make sure everything's there, because I have to say sometimes Dreamweaver can be a little touchy on that and miss something. So make sure everything is there. I like to even be as particular as moving my divs so that they're kind of in the right order. Right? So notice how easy Dreamweaver makes it in the CSS styles. I can literally just move them around. So now everything's really, really nicely organized. So the next thing that I'm going to do, and we can notice that we basically have just added our containers. Now we're going to add our content. So I'm going to go back and where Dreamweaver has added this little dummy content, this little dummy text, I'm going to make sure my cursor is in between my opening and closing div for my logo, and I'm going to insert my logo image. So I want to make sure I'm in the right folder. And here I am in my images folder. I've got my logo.gif. That's what I'm going to choose. And there it is. I'm not going to place it or anything else. I'm just going to get it inside the correct div. Same thing with my navigation. Now with my navigation, remember we did a navigation that was vertical in the one column exercise. Here we're going to do a horizontal navigation. So here's another time where I've got my little starter code, okay? Because if I have built horizontal navigation once, I don't want to have to rebuild it again. So I'm going to open up my navigation HTML that I have here and just copy it. I'm going to close this. I'm just going to go back to my HTML and I'm just going to paste it in here. And you'll notice that this is actually the HTML from our one column exercise. So I'm just going to go in here and change the nav because we have about as one of our sections. And then again, we're always following our Photoshop document. If you'll notice, we've got about, work, contact, and blog. So work, contact, and I need one more, so I'm just, again, going to just do a copy and paste here. Okay. And again, it's not formatted correctly, but it's in there. And, you know, that was nice and quick. So, I mean, yes, there's a way you could add these list items in Dreamweaver, but probably not quicker than that. And I'm always about, you know, you want to be efficient and get things done as quickly as you can. Okay, so now in our main content, again, I'm going to delete this little dummy text that Dreamweaver has put inside there, and I'm going to add my image and my text. So I'm going to go back up to Insert Image, and I've named it Main Photo. That's the photo for the left-hand column. There it is. And right below it, so I gotta make sure I'm after my closing bracket, I'm going to add the text. Okay, but first I'm going to just do a save. Okay, so if we go to our Photoshop document, you'll see we've got all this text. Now, hopefully you've got this in a text document. That would be the easiest thing and the best thing, but sometimes you might not. So sometimes you have to sort of pull it out of the Photoshop document. So that's actually what I'm going to do. And so I'm going to need to go to the layer that has the text. So here's the graffiti Paris. And I'm going to copy it. And I'm actually going to use a application called Text Wrangler. And this is actually free. Okay, so you might want to get yourself a copy of this. But I like Text Wrangler because it does a lot of things. One of the things that it does is it can do what's called zap gremlins. And I'm going to do that here. Okay. Sometimes you get weird characters when you're copying and pasting from Photoshop. So that's my reason for using something like TextEdit. And again, hopefully, you know, you've got your text in a separate, maybe Word document. Now, with a Word document, that's another case where it would be helpful to go in and sort of zap your gremlins, as TextEdit or Text Wrangler calls it. Okay, so here's my text. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to show you another really helpful way of adding text into your Dreamweaver, into your HTML. So I have my cursor underneath my underneath my photo, and I'm going to go up to Paste Special. And when you select Paste Special, one of the choices is to paste your text with structure. So Dreamweaver will or can paste it in with your and keep some of your structure like your paragraph. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to look at what Dreamweaver did. So okay, well, this is better than nothing. I've got some of my paragraph tags around my text, which is going to be helpful, but I'm still going to have to go in here and do things like add H1 tags around my headings, right? And because my paragraph actually really starts down here. So you may have to go in and do some markup on your own, which unfortunately sometimes happens. So I'm just going to do some of this right now. So I'm actually just marking this up so that we've got some paragraph tags around our text. And notice that when we do that, we get just a little bit of styling that is just characteristic of these tags. So we get like that default styling for our heading tag, etc. So that's we're in a better spot there, but we've got our content in there, and then finally we want to do the same thing for our sidebar. So we're going to be putting it in the main sidebar div. I'm going to delete the dummy text. And what do I have in there? I have an image of Justine. And I also have some text. So again, I'm going to go back to the Photoshop document and get this text. And also our Let's Connect text is also HTML, so I'm going to get that too. And I'm going to zap those gremlins. It's funny. All right, so I'm going to copy that and put that in our sidebar. Okay. I've got my social media icons, so again, I'm just going to get them in there. So we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, and we've got our LinkedIn. And then we've got our 3 images. Or sorry, not 3, there's actually 2. So we've got 2 pieces of art. We have artwork 1, and we have artwork 2. Oops, I didn't do that very well. Let's go back in there. Okay. All right, so again, let's see where we're at. Well, it's not laid out at all how we want it, but we've got our content, and our final thing to do is just to get that footer text in there. So our footer text, we just have a little copyright information. So I'm going to that layer, and again, if I just double click on the T on that text layer, I can get our text for that. Notice it has a copyright, so it's copyright 2009 to 2011 with her name, and we're going to put that in the footer. But I don't want to have this character as a copyright. I actually want to change that to an HTML character. So you want to go up to Insert, HTML, Special Characters. I'm It's really deep in the interface, and select copyright. So insert HTML special characters, copyright. When you select that, Dreamweaver is going to put in this this code here, and that will the reason you do that is so that when you view this in a browser, that copyright symbol that you had in there initially doesn't turn into some weird character. So best practice is to have all of your characters like that. So M dashes, N dashes, copyrights, other symbols as HTML code. So this is where we're at. So you can see that we have we do have styling to take care of, and that's actually what we're going to talk about in part 2 of this video. So I hope that you will stick around and be sure to watch the second part. Thanks for watching Everything About Web. Please visit us at www.everythingaboutweb.com and also on YouTube and Twitter.